Get a red light.
Okay. It's recording. It says 41 minutes.
Okay, maybe it just starts all over again, or maybe it goes, does that part and then starts on the other side. Okay, are we recording?
Well,
Okay, I need your name, where you're from, or where you went into the service, and when you went into the service.
My name is Donald A. Newvine. I'm from Syracuse, New York. I went into service at Syracuse Training Building on the 15th day of July, 1947.
Which service was that, though?
That was
That was
in
the
the
first
United
time?
States Marine Corps. United States
That was
Marine
the
Corps.
first time?
That's I was 17 years old in April of that year, and I joined the service in July because I was working at Remington Rand, and they went on strike, and I didn't want to wait for them to go back to work, so I joined the Marine Corps.
Okay, so then what did you do while you were in the Marine Corps? And how long were you in?
I only put 3 years in there. I went to basic training at Parris Island, South Carolina, and I left there and I went to Camp Lejeune. I was in Camp Lejeune about a week or so. They didn't start no training or nothing, but they just, there's some reason or other, I was about 5'10" and a half, 168 pounds, and they sent me to Washington, D.C. So there was about a dozen of us went. I don't know why, but anyways, I got the 8th and 9th Marine Barracks. It's only one small block in the city of Washington, D.C. And on that post is the Commandant of the Marine Corps. One end of the block is the Commandant of the Marine Corps. The other side is what they call the Marine Corps Institute. Half of the people that are going to the Marine Corps Institute, and every morning they used to get on a bus and go over to Southeast, 8th and E, Southeast I believe it was, and like a correspondence course. They'd be sitting in there, they'd be correcting papers and everything. And I stayed in there for about 4 months, and I decided I wanted to leave because the barrack detachment led a more interesting life as far as I was concerned. So I transferred over there, and for the next couple of years I spent a whole lot of time in Arlington Cemetery. I went to Camp Shangri-La a couple times, probably 3 or 4 times. In an event, somebody don't know what Camp Shangri-La is. President Roosevelt named this summer camp up in the mountains Camp Shangri-La, and it stayed Camp Shangri-La until President Eisenhower changed the name to Camp David after his grandson.
What year was that?
I was 48, 49, and I get out July 50. But President Eisenhower changed that in 1952, I believe, when he come in office.
So you were in the U.S. Marine Corps at 17. You stayed in the Marine Corps for 3 years, you said? Okay, then you got out. What did you do when you got out?
Well, I was out of the service for 38 days, and I had odds and end jobs, and I was thinking about going back into the Marine Corps, and but I went down I talked to a recruiting Marine, and it seemed like they wanted to send me right back to 8th Night where I was before, and I didn't want to go there, so I more or less put it out of my mind. Then
You were out for 38 days,
That's
and you
all.
went back in?
I was out of the service. I got discharged.
Okay.
And then 38 days later, me and my brother joined the Army.
Okay, you joined the Army.
Army. And we wanted to go to, we both volunteered to go to Korea. And I guess at the time, July, we didn't realize how bad it was over there. A few years later, you read everything. But anyways, we went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, me and my brother. We were both prior service, and we didn't have to go through basic training. We went down to a 45th Repel Depot down there, and they interviewed us and processed us and got all the paperwork, everything done.
Was this in Syracuse, or this was
At Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Okay.
So then, while we were there, they sent us over to the other side of the base, Fort Knox, Kentucky, which was all training. And we ended up as truck drivers instructors. Now this is very, very unusual. For some reason, I lived on a farm, and my uncle had an old car down there, and I wouldn't even go down the barn to get milk, you know, but he'd say, hey, Don, jump in the car and drive down the barn and get some milk. I said, okay, and I'd bring her back up to the house. Never had a driver's license or nothing in 1950. So here I'm a truck driver instructor, and here we got these great big 45-ton tank retrievers, every kind of vehicle, from a Jeep all the way up to this 45-ton tank retriever. Of course, I was an instructor, and the trainees would go for 8 weeks training. In the first 2 weeks was all platform. And they give you lesson plans, you know, learn them, and then you'd stand up there. You know, it wasn't hard for you know, a very intelligent kid to tell some trainee out of Chicago what's going on.
Did you become an instructor out of after training of some kind, or did they just assign you that?
They just assigned me and my brother.
Oh, okay.
So we both stayed there, and we was truck driver instructors. And what it is, after these trainees, they get through basic training, they we'll call it what they AIT, advanced training, you know. So the ones we had, they were going to go into the transportation corps and be truck drivers. So I stayed there for near a year, and then my brother went to Korea, and they sent me to Germany.
What did you do in Germany?
I was in the transportation corps over there, and I was infantry in and out, and I got moved around a little bit there, but I was with that's another, well, that's part of my later story here, but I was with the 4th Infantry Division, 22nd Regiment at Schweinfurt, Germany, and they moved from there. Where'd they go? Nuremberg. And we got the infantry, they transferred to, just like later on you're going to see the same thing happen to me in Vietnam. But we just changed the whole units, just exchanged.
What year was that?
In 1951,
How long?
I was in Germany in 1951, 2 and 3.
Okay, and then from Germany?
Yep,
And then
in
you were
Germany.
doing the same job?
I was in
3 years?
Transportation Corps.
Okay, and
Yeah.
after Germany, what happened after Germany?
Well, I come back to the States, I got discharged.
Okay, and what year was that?
53.
Okay, so what did you do in 1953? What did you do after
I wa-
that?
Well, I got discharged, and I had a job with Crucible Steel in Syracuse. I think it was Holcomb Steel at the time. I worked there about 2 weeks, and they went on strike. Again, they went on strike. And I was on the night shift, and I got on a bus and went all the way out there. I got ready to get off, and there's some guys sitting there on the benches, and they said, don't go in there. I said, what do you mean? I work here. I'm on the 3rd shift. Says they got a wildcat strike. So they went on strike, and that's
How
so
long did that last?
the strike. I don't know. I went in the army, joined the army before the end of the strike.
Okay,
I
so-
went back into service again.
All right, so when what?
I
when
went
did you go back into
I went back in service 1st of December, I think, right around December
What year?
in 53.
Okay, and where did you go, and where
I
did you
went
join
to-
the Army? Where,
I
where
went
did they send
to
you?
Fort Houston, Virginia. I went down to Camp Kilner, New Jersey, and they processed my records and everything, and then they transferred me to Fort Houston, Virginia. And I was in the transportation corps down there. And in 1954, that's when I met my wife. Well, earlier than that, but we got married. And I don't know, about 3 weeks after we got married, they sent me to Goose Bay, Labrador. So in April or
What
May.
was that for? What was your
I'm
job
gonna get to
there?
that. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't want to sharpshoot you. But anyway, that was April. And we went to Goose Bay, Labrador as transportation, and they used to bring these Liberty ships in there. And there was only about 6 months out of the year they could bring these ships in there because of 1 week, one way or the other, you couldn't get them out of there because of the ice. So I was up there for 6 months, unloading, driving a truck, pull it up along the ship, they had flatbeds and tractor trailer, and they'd put these pallets on there, and we'd take out to where the Eskimos were, Northwest Mounted Police Post, way out in the boondocks. And it's funny you think about Goose Bay, Labrador, but there was more sand than anything else there. You could think you were down on the beach in Miami, Florida or somewhere. But now this is in the summer months. But we would unload them ships, and then we'd get on them, and we'd get out of there, and after we get to Fort Houston, Virginia, we'd give reports that a week later we couldn't get that ship out of there because there was so much ice.
Yeah.
So I stayed there at Fort Houston. Then I went to France.
You stayed there 4
50
years?
wait a
in
minute.
Labrador?
I joined the Army in 1954. Then the first part of 55, I went to France. And while I was over there, and then while I was over there in the summer of 55, my wife come over. Had to be something, because I had my son was born over in France, Verdun, France, September 5th, 1955? 58. 7?
Were you doing the same job?
Yeah, well, I was transportation over there.
Okay.
And then I was with taxi engineers and everything, and then I like a floater, you know, whatever they needed. I had about 2 or 3 different MOSs in about 4 years. But anyways, my wife come over there and we stayed in France we left there 58, went to Fort Leonard, Missouri. And I don't know, I ended up in a mess hall there. I was a cook at Fort Leonard, and I had a daughter born there.
How long were you there?
I'm trying to think of where I went next. 59, 60. Oh, I went to. That must have been. I went to. Let me think now. I put down. I went down Korea. I had Korea in 1961 or 62. I might have been wrong. You turn that off a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you were in Missouri from what were the years you were in Missouri?
I left there I think in 60 or 61, and then I went to Korea. And I was in Korea for 12 months. And while I was over there, I was working with the engineers. We were going out building Bailey bridges. And somehow or other I got involved with this. We had the 4th Missile Command there. That's what I was stationed in. And we used to go up in the mountains. I used to go up with these guys, and they put in firing points for these Honest John rockets. And they were all, what do you call these guys? Surveyors. They went through surveyor school, and they go way up on the mountains. We wouldn't see nobody for maybe 4 or 5 days or something. And they were putting a very interesting job for them. And they were a bunch of young kids too, 18 and 19 years old.
So they surveyed, and what did you do?
I would just more or less I did a little bit of everything. I was an engineer. I used to go out and get the people in the village to come up and help up, clean up around, and I used to cook for them. I do a little bit of everything for them. And all they do is go up, survey all the mountains and everything. So I went back. We got back down, and when I left Korea, I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And my son Mitch was born there.
And what did you do
I was a best steward in
okay.
basic training. Very proud. Did a good job too.
For how long?
Well, I was there. Let me see. I'm going back now. 63, 60. Where did I go after that? Because I left Fort Campbell to go to. That's when I went to Vietnam.
That was in 1968, according to what you said.
68, 69. I was in Vietnam.
So you went there. You went to Vietnam from.
Oh, wait a minute, I know, 64, I went back to Germany. 64 or 65, my family come over. My son Gary was born then, over in Frankfurt, Germany. And in that 1966, my first sergeant called me down to the office early room. He says, Sergeant Newvine, would you like to go back to the States early? I said, what do you mean, Top? He says, well, we're going to start building a basic training unit at Fort Campbell, Kentucky for training Vietnam trainees for Vietnam War. I said, all right. Well, I said, wait a minute. I says, let me get the phone. I got the phone. I called our government quarters, and I was talking to my wife, Rose. I said, Rose, the first sergeant wants to know if you'd like to go back to the States early as a family. I held the phone like that. H-E-L-L, yes. So we left there. We got all our family together, and 1966 we left. Went to Fort Campbell, and when we first got there, they just had these wooden buildings. And they said, all right, we're gonna start getting troops here in about, I don't know, they gave us about 6 weeks. And on the paperwork I filled, I had a good friend of mine I met there, a Sergeant First Class, William C. Hass. He had his family, and they just called him back from, he was stationed out in the Midwest somewhere. And we got the same deal there, but between him and me and all of us mess sergeants, we all got our heads together, and you have to work together. You'd be surprised, like a bunch of politicians, the deals you work to get things done. And we wheeled and dealed there. And we got it going. And then basic training, again, then basic training, you used to come in there, and I tell you one thing, ever since, after I become mess sergeant, I had power that I used to run some good mess halls. And I stayed there for until 1968. And my brother, I don't know, just.
What did you do as a mess hall person in basic training? What did you do? You said you ran a good mess hall. How did you know whether it was a good mess hall or not?
Because we used to get inspected, and we used to get A, and I'd go out and ask them trainees. I used to say, hey, you get an update? Yep. And one thing I started is at Fort Jackson, I had a mess hall there and basic training unit, and the drill instructors used to run in there and they'd say, all right, you got 30 minutes, you got to feed 200 people. I said, wait a minute. I ain't gonna feed no 200 people in 30 minutes. And I had a sign over my serving line, seconds. And after we get all through serving everybody, one of my cooks had put that sign on, and them young kids used to run for the dessert table and get all of the desserts. You know, they didn't care about the meat and the potatoes, but they get the desserts. But anyways, it started at Fort Jackson. Them drill instructors, the big hats, burly guys, they come in there and you've got 10 minutes to do this. And I got them on the side. I said, come here, I want to talk to you guys. And I got them all out in the back, and I said, look, them guys are mine for an hour. After that, you do whatever you want with them. And they kind of appreciated that. But at night, you know, they bring the guys back in from training, they feed them and everything. And they used to come in and ask me, says, Sergeant Newvine, how many men do you want for detail or something? I said, well, give me 20 people. He'd run 20 people, and my cooks really appreciate this because the KPs, you'd have the 8 KPs that clean the building and wash dishes, pots, pans, and everything. And they used to give them 20-man detail, and you could take 5 guys and take the whole dining room and clean it, wash tables, shake, salt, pepper shakers, wipe them off, and be ready to serve another meal in 5 or 10 minutes. And they appreciate it. And that was the same way at basic training there in Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
And then they have Thanksgiving. I'd have them tables all decorated, flowers, and I was headquarters in A Company, and so the battalion commander used to come over all the time. He pretty near busted me one time. I used to look. I had a menu. I type up a menu, and I'd say milk, 8 ounces, and this bird colonel, he says, Sergeant Newvine, he says, how come you only give him 8 ounces of milk? Why don't you give him a cup? I said, sir, a cup is 8 ounces. He got so mad at me, he went storming out of my mess hall. I didn't see him for about a week or so, but anyways, I used to have my kids, they're old enough to understand how I used to figure everything out. When I was in Germany, I was a mess sergeant, and I had a Mercedes. Great big old black Mercedes, and after every Thanksgiving or Christmas, I used to go out of the back of the mess hall where my car was parked, and right across the back was all filled with peanuts and nuts. I eat peanuts. And I mean, even my family, and holidays, they were all invited in there. So I did that there until 1968, and I went to Vietnam. We're doing pretty good, huh? So.
Okay, so you were really, well, you really made the holiday special for those guys, then, didn't you? What'd you do for Christmas?
I hope to think so. Well, no, Christmas, and normally the basic training, they go on leave or something.
Oh.
They normally go, they shut down a basic training maybe from the 20th of December till maybe right after the holidays.
Okay, so you go home too, huh?
Yeah,
Well, you lived on the base, didn't you?
yeah, we lived in government quarters, and
So what did you do when you were in Vietnam? How was that?
Vietnam,
Yeah.
well, when I first went over there, I went over on Braniff Airlines. If anybody's ever heard of Braniff Airlines, a great big 747, you got the good-looking girls running up, and you want a cup of coffee and all this here stuff. I says, look, I'm going to war. Look what the way they treat me. So anyways, I landed at Cameron Bay, and I stayed there for, I don't know, I was there about 7 or 8 days, maybe 10 days. They give you training, process all your records, and then we went out on a night patrol. There probably wasn't a Charlie within 100 miles from there, but we went out there to give us these weapons, and we gone out there, and they give you these claymores. I don't know if they were malfunction. It's a thing you hold close to your body so that it's curved, so make sure you get it pointed away from you if it goes off. It's not coming at you. And we got all, just like Sergeant York, you know, they thought we were in the war out there. And we're, you know, first time in Vietnam, you hear so much about it. And like I say, the guy go out there and he throw a rock over there and you get, nobody ever fired any, but they were just testing us, and it was just a training exercise for us. So I stayed there for a week. We went through that. I think it was 2 nights we went through that training, which was good training. I got to give the people that put that little exercise on. They really got you to thinking, you know. So anyways, I left there. Ben Fook. I went down to 5th and 60th down in the Delta. And it was a very big base camp. And but I was with the 5th and 60th, and they were an infantry unit. And we had tracks and everything there, but these young kids used to go, they used to call these eagle flights. It was some bad news, them young kids.
Eagle flights, what did they?
They get on a chopper and they go out maybe 20 miles and they drop them down in the Delta somewhere, and these infantrymen, they go searching for Charlie. And I used to get the kids that to work in my mess hall that couldn't make it. And
They couldn't make it, meaning?
as going out on Eagle Fly, and they get a little scared, and they refuse to get off the chopper or something. I mean, if you could see it, it's not good, I tell you that. But them young kids, I wouldn't want to get on that chopper. But, and then they come back at night, and we used to get mortared just about every night. Get into your bunker. I'd go over to we had a little sand hooch there. I'd get a couple of pieces of ice, and I'd get a couple warm beers, and I'd get out of my bunker. I had a rat trap down there. I'd set the rat trap and start rolling my beer in the ice, get it cold, and I'd sit down and write my wife a letter. Before the beer got cold, or I got the rat, I probably caught about 3 rats. So I used to take them out, put them in the water barrel, all in place. They got big 55-gallon drums of, because if you ever start a fire, it's kind of dry over there. You gotta have some. I've had rats live out there 7 or 8 minutes out there. I just hold them down there and drown them. I don't know if this has got anything for military history, but it's things I did. And
did you leave it there or did you throw
yeah.
it away?
So anyways, I was there for 6 months. And like I say, we had these track vehicles, you know. And they weren't no good down in the Delta. So here's what I'm telling you about when I was in Germany. We had one whole brigade or regiment exchanging. The 5th and 69th Infantry Division down in the Delta, we changed with the 1st and the 16th up in Lai Kay. That was up north of Saigon. 1st and 16th was the outfit. I was in Germany when they traveled. The 1st Infantry Division down.
You got to see them again.
Well, they weren't the same people, but that big red one, no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great. That was their motto.
Oh.
I don't know if the 9th Division ever had a motto or not. Mitch probably tell you, my son, because he was in the 9th Division. So then I went to K, and after being in Ben Fook, which was a small base camp, like I said, we used to get, I didn't tell you about these dusters, they call them, down in Ben Fook. You get some mortars in, and they have these here big tanks, they go up there, and these have, they call, they have 40 millimeter guns on them, and we used to call them the dusters. And they'd start shooting out there, and if Charlie's out there anywhere around, we wouldn't hear about him the rest of the night. But anyways, after we went up into K, as big as that base camp was, I used to go down to mess hall in the morning, and they say, well, Charlie Campo on the other side of base camp got mortared or something, maybe 122 missile in or something. You never even hear it, it was so big. So I stayed there, I wasn't there about 2 weeks. And one whole outfit, we moved out, and they called it the pacification program. We'd go out into the boondocks, and man, you couldn't go out nowhere 3 feet and be bushes and everything. We had these great big bulldozers and just start cutting them. And about 3 or 4 hours later, you had a ballpark figure all the way around you. That's how good these things were. And at night, it'd make you real nervous because they'd be down there, and these blades on these dozers, they got these things and they're sharpening them up and everything. And you say, man, that's a good target for Charlie, you know. But I wasn't worried about there because we were out there, and what the pacification program was, these villages that got kind of wiped out a little bit by Charlie, like in my case, maybe a school got knocked out or something. So we'd go down, and the engineers would build up a school. I'd have Kool-Aid, I would get more Kool-Aid and have 5-gallon jugs, and I'd take Kool-Aid down for them kids, and they have a marketplace, they build up the marketplace for them, and they do a little bit of everything for them. That's what they call a pacification program. And, but at night, we used to get mortared, but, and then again, the guys used to go out on different patrols. I can't say too much about the Vietnamese, but they'd be right at the bunker, and they'd come out at night, you know, they're going to get their ammunition for their weapons and everything. Here comes these guys over here from the Vietnamese army. Boy, they'd load up. Man, you'd think they wouldn't be they'd be gone for 6 months. Then the Americans, they'd come over and get what they needed and everything. The Vietnamese go out this way, Americans go that way, and at night, where the Americans were was where you get problems. And Charlie, I wanted to say Charlie, he's not Charlie, that's Vietnamese, when they come back in, they wouldn't have nothing.
Really?
All their ammo would be gone, but you even hear a bullet out there. But I liked it because I tell you, at night, we have pretty good coverage out there. If you get mortared, or like somebody get a little run in an ambush or something out here, they'd call spook. And I don't know if anybody's heard about spook, but that's a C-47. And they would call, here comes spook. He'd be over the top of you, and they got all these here windows on the side open. They got all kinds of ammunition. And the pilot would be so cool. I used to listen to him on the radio because I was right next to headquarters. He says, be advised, we've got 8 hours of illumination. We've got 4,000 rounds of this, 4,000 rounds of that. And where are you getting your action from? And the first thing you know, they'd light up the whole sky, you know. Be orange again, you know. And, but as long as, I could sit on top of a bunker, read the Stars and Stripes. That was our paper we used to get over there. And not worry about nothing. As long as spook was up there. But
You felt safe then.
But I stayed with the pacification program right up until I got ready to come home.
Okay.
I never did take a R&R because, I don't know, I heard my wife say because of babysitting problem, it was financial and everything. That I could have we thinking about one time to go in Sydney, Australia. I had about 3 different places I could have went but I ended up taking in-country R&R. They got a R&R center there. I imagine they got more than one. This is right on the South China Sea. They call it Vung Tau. And I went down there, you stay there for about a week, and you go in there, I stayed the first 2 days under a hot shower. And what was so funny about it, you walk around and you didn't see no weapons. You wouldn't even see a rifle. And the South Korean Army was supposed to have been the one that was pulling perimeter duty Europe.
How long did you stay there?
We're at Vungtau?
Yeah.
Just 1 week.
And from there?
From the time I left my base camp to the time I got back, I had a day travel and a day coming back. And
Okay.
they just put you on one of these little fixed wings airplane, they fly you right in there. So
Where did you go from there?
after I left Korea,
After you
Vietnam,
Yeah.
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Okay.
And I was a mess sergeant in there. I had my family with me. My friend Sergeant Hass showed up again there. And he's one of the papers I just filled out a while ago, one of my friends out. He retired right after I did, and he was from Columbus, Ohio. And we went down to visit him a couple times. He got some real bad problems. He was a kind of a big guy, and he passed away. And my wife and myself, we kept touch with his wife Mary. He had 3 or 4 kids, and he had one daughter, went through OCS in Ohio State. She was an officer, and she was married to an officer. But I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I ran across him. He had a whole lot better method. In fact, I went to a headquarters company at Fort Knox, Kentucky when I first come back from Vietnam. I got promoted in Vietnam to E7. And I went in the mess hall, and everybody thought they knew more than me because of the headquarters company. Man, I don't know. I had some cooks there, probably retired out of that place. I don't know, but they thought they were going to run the show.
Oh.
And I was there about, I don't know, 2 weeks. Finally, I went down. I seen the post sergeant major because it was headquarters company. I said, Sergeant Major, I want to get transferred. He said, where do you want to go? I pointed them wooden buildings. They still had wooden buildings over there, and I said, I want to go somewhere where they appreciate a good mess sergeant.
Yeah. And where did you go?
So I went over there. And Dan brought this up to my mind here. I remember, see what they do, they go through basic training, the trainings for 8 weeks. And maybe you might not get another cycle in, which a cycle is for 8 weeks. You might not get a bunch of trainings for maybe 2 weeks. But the last week of the training, I used to say, all right, I go all the drill instructors, I need $5. I need $5, I need $5. So we'd have a big party. I'd get all the families there. I'd go take the $5. Of course, I'm out of the Army. They can't give me or nothing now. But I used to save up steaks and everything. I put them in the freezer, you know, and we'd have a big party. All the families, maybe 50 people out there, and we used to do it at the end of every cycle. And
Wow.
they really appreciated that too.
Yeah, I bet they did.
But first January rolled around there, and I really enjoyed the service. And I probably would have stayed in except for my oldest son and my daughter. You know, when you move anywhere I went, if it was possible, my wife wanted to go with me. And she did, except for she was in Germany and France. She couldn't go to Korea or Vietnam with me.
When did you get out?
In their education,
When did you retire?
1st of January, 1971.
1971, okay. And from there, where were you at that time?
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Okay, and where did you go from there? after you got out?
Syracuse. Well,
Syracuse?
yeah, we went. We rented a house in North Syracuse, and we stayed there for I don't know about a year. Then we went to East Syracuse, and the kids got involved in school over there, and made a lot of good friends. So me and my wife was looking around for a house, and we found one in Mattydale. And I went over, looked at it, and I thought the price was right, and I took her over, and I said, "What do you think about this?" And, you know, she'd been traveling ever since she was 17 years old. And boy, when she said, "Come on, we're going to buy a house." And how many times we got transferred when I was in the Army, and they pack up our goods and everything. She was great. She said, yeah, let's buy this house right here. So, bought the house. I went to work I was looking for a job. I started driving for a steward sandwich company. I used to go all over. I'd go to Elmira one day and I'd go Rome the next day. And I worked for them, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. Then my brother, the one that went to Korea, he was working for New Venture Gear, which is part of Chrysler Corporation. He says, Don, would you ever think about going into the factory? I said, gee, I don't know, I never thought about it. So he said, I'll bring you some papers over. So I met him over at night one night and sit in the bar, and I filled the papers out and give them to him. And about a week, 10 days later, I got a call. At that time, back in '71, I think I went there in September 27th. They were hiring about 20 people a week.
Wow.
And now they're laying off 20 people a week. But anyways, I went to work and I lasted there 23 years.
And I see you're still active in the Veterans.
American Legion, Post 1832, Mattydale, New York. And we, when I retired from Chrysler, I had a real good friend of mine, Jerry St. Hilaire. He was a commander of the post there. And I had already been a member of this. I already been a member of the post for now about 35 years. And he said, Don, he says, I'm going to put you to work. I said, what? He said, well, we need a part-time bartender. One's going to Minnesota. I said, all right, I'll work 2 days a week. And that lasted about 9 years. So finally, one day I looked out the window. I said, man, you're 72 years old working because I was the only guy working. Everybody else quit on me. So I says, you're 72 years old, time to quit and retire, and I think I'm about out of time. And it was very nice talking to you people. How's that sound?
Thank you so much.
That was easy.
Yeah, see,
That was awesome.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
great.
I couldn't remember the dates though. Yvonne, I'll tell you, I'm glad to do it.
I'm so glad you were able to do that. That was interesting. I thought it was.
Oh, another thing,
fascinating,
I carry chapels now. I'm the assistant chapel. They call me Deacon Don. We have a meeting in the chapel and don't show up. I'm the guy that fills it.
Well, Fred, that was great. That was wonderful.